As we bring this historic second impeachment of President Trump to a close, he has been acquitted. Not entirely surprising outcome there, but some senators were surprised at how many Republicans ultimately voted guilty. More than many expected, however, was not enough to ultimately convict the president, and for a second time, he walks away acquitted of an impeachment charge. Former President Donald Trump acquitted again.
Donald John Trump be, and he is hereby acquitted of the charge in said article.
By a vote of 57 to 43, the Senate failed to meet the 67-vote threshold to convict Mr. Trump.
We slammed them down on the mat and won this case. There's no grappling anymore. We won, not guilty.
In the end, 7 Republicans joined all 50 Democrats in voting to convict.
This was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment in the history of the United States.
Former President Trump's actions preceded the riot were a disgraceful dereliction of duty.
And while Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell voted not guilty, he delivered a stinging rebuke of former President Trump shortly afterwards.
President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. These criminals were carrying his banners, hanging his flags.
The former president's defense team took a victory lap after the vote.
We're extraordinarily gratified that the United States Senate decided as they did.
And despite not winning a vote to convict the former president, the impeachment team and Democratic leaders maintain they proved their case, that former President Trump incited the Capitol attack.
I think in the eyes of the entire world and the country, we overwhelmingly proved the facts of the case.
What we saw in that Senate today was a cowardly group of Republicans who apparently have no options because they were afraid to defend their job, respect the institution in which they served.
Still, as the trial closed, some Republican senators maintained they voted to acquit because the process was flawed to begin with.
It was my view when we started, and it's my view now, that the purpose of presidential impeachment is to remove a person from office, not to punish an individual who is no longer in office.
And there was some speculation about how this process might impact President Trump if he decides to run again in 2024. But because the Senate voted to acquit him now, they were not able to take a second vote that would ultimately have barred him from running again. So right now, if the president decides, he is entirely free to run another campaign for president again in 2024. In Washington, Joe Khalil, NewsNation.
The former president responded to his acquittal in a statement. He thanked members of Congress before saying, quote, "Our historic, patriotic, and beautiful movement to make America great again has only just begun. In the months ahead, I have much to share with you, and I look forward to continuing our incredible journey together."